What's up YouTube, I'm Mike, and today I'm back with the third video of the day. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to publish these all today or just roll them out one at a time. I don't know why it really matters. I mean, you guys, I kind of like getting all of the content that's available and then watching it whenever it's convenient for me, because you guys might be, in a different part of the world. So if I roll out 4 videos today, rather than one, my time and then one my time the next day, I don't know. I've got a whole bunch of content that I'm working on, so you may be seeing all of these back to back or however you choose to view them. Today, however, is a very special and honestly very terrifying day for me. I have been talking about this at length for some period of time, but before I get into what is about to happen to me, let me first tentatively apologize. In one of my previous videos, while I did not come right out and say it, I was hinting that I had a suspicion that the Arimidex that I sourced from PCT 247 might be underdosed. The reason I felt that way is because it required 7 milligrams of Arimidex per week, 1 milligram of Arimidex per day, to rectify my estrogen level. And so I was convinced that I should not require more than 1.5 milligrams of Adex per week at a dose of 200 milligrams of testosterone. Now, that is true. That is what I require on a dose of 200 milligrams of testosterone per week. The problem is that I also have at least 200 milligrams of nandrolone decanoate, also known as Deca, in my system. I have refused to believe that 200 milligrams of Deca could possibly upregulate aromatase expression to the point that I would suddenly need 3 times the amount of Arimidex to compensate for that dosage of nandrolone. While I still cannot conclusively rule one way or the other, I can tell you that now this week alone, I have switched off of the PCT Adex, and I have had a minimum of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another milligram. I've had somewhere between 5 and 6 milligrams of Adex this week. At a minimum, I've had 4 to 5 milligrams this week. So, because I missed the day I did not notate. So, either way you slice it, on 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate per week and 200 milligrams of nandrolone decanoate, I apparently need at least, bare minimum, either way you slice it, twice the dosage of Arimidex to keep my estrogen in line. I have taken this amount of Arimidex thus far this week, and my gyno is still not completely gone. Today it is the best that it has been, and I have had a milligram of Arimidex for this is my 3rd day in a row. So if my log is correct, I had no Adex on Sunday, 1 milligram on Monday, 1 milligram on Tuesday, none on Wednesday, 1 milligram Thursday, 1 milligram Friday, and then I took another milligram today, Saturday. So the minimum, we're working with 2, 4, like I said, coming up on 5 milligrams of Adex. And this is after the previous week, I had dosed it at, I believe, half of a milligram per day. So I had been on about a half of a milligram per day. So it wasn't, and that caused me to have estrogen 2 times the top end of the reference range. So it seems pretty conclusive that A, there's nothing wrong with the dosing of the PCT 247 Adex. So I apologize if that was the insinuation that I made. And secondly, it appears that yet again, on one of the topics that concerns my estrogen levels, that my buddy Kavalser is likely right. That I mean, it's only been a week, but it's looking pretty conclusive that whether or not it's truly 7 milligrams per week, The nandrolone decanoate in my body is causing a significant upregulation of aromatase expression, and or it's aromatizing at a significant rate enough that it is massively throwing off my estrogen balance with the standard dosing protocol of Arimidex. So I cannot maintain these levels apparently on anything. 3.5 milligrams of Adex is not enough. I'm back to 5 to 7 milligram territory. So that was what I needed to find out for myself. I needed to know for me, because none of my experiments are going to be valid if I'm using Arimidex that is underdosed. I needed to know for certain that it was not, and it appears to be good as everything else that I have received from that source, which is, I'm very, very thankful for that's true. I told my wife, this is one of those times where I have really been hoping that I was wrong, because if you've got a product that's underdosed, it calls into question every single thing else you've ever bought. And I have purchased quite a number of products from this particular person, and so that would be a very bad thing to have happen. So I'm very happy that seems to not be the case, because of the fact that I am not willing to drop the Deca from my system. I'm not willing to take the Trenbolone out of my system, and because I'm an idiot, first and foremost, I am about to embark on an experiment that I think very few people have done. This is not a once-in-a-lifetime experiment. I do believe that Derek ran a similar experiment for a period of time. Again, I should probably look up his video to find out why he stopped doing it. I think when Derek ran nandrolone and estrogen, he was running estrogen cream. I'm not positive. I'll have to look into that. But without any further ado, today is the first day in like 5 years. I don't know when I started TRT. October of
5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years. I think I started October of 2019 is I think when I started TRT. I have not gone below 200 milligrams of testosterone since I started TRT way back when. Today, I am supposed to inject 100 milligrams of testosterone, and I am not going to do it. I am pulling testosterone effectively today completely out of my cycle. The only thing that I will have left to aromatize will be whatever amount of Deca I settle on, and about 1,200 IUs, 1,500 IUs of HCG per week. That is going to be the only aromatizable compounds in my system. Now, what should happen is I should crash my estrogen to the toilet very rapidly. That is what I'm going to intend to do, because I have had high estrogen for far too long now. I cannot continue to play with this game. And so here are my concerns. I am making so much estrogen at 200 milligrams of test and 200 milligrams of nandrolone that my concern is, even if I take all of the test out of my cycle, I might still end up with a physiological amount of estrogen. Now, Kowalser does not believe this is true. He believes that it would take substantially more nandrolone that I'm taking in order to have a physiological amount of estrogen. I believe I'm accurately understanding his logic, because his argument, I believe, is that is not that Deca is aromatizing at a high rate, but that it is up-regulating aromatase expression or aromatase sensitivity, however you would explain it. So I think his argument is that what nandrolone does is either gives me more aromatase for the 200 milligrams that I have to bind to, or somehow sensitizes it and makes it stronger. So that in the absence of testosterone, in the absence of an aromatizable compound, even though there's an upregulation of aromatase, there's nothing to bind to it, and so my levels should still go down. They should still be below the physiological range. So my objective with this cycle that is starting today effectively, obviously it's going to take some time for things to wear off. My objective is to take out the testosterone completely And if that crashes my estrogen into the toilet, which it should, and when I say, and I mean without any Arimidex, that's the big thing that I have to decide is, when do I take the Arimidex out? Obviously if I'm taking Arimidex with no testosterone and just Deca, I should knock my estrogen completely out of the park. But I'm nervous to get off of the ADEX while there's still some test E falling out of my system, because I don't want to go high again. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of a best of both worlds scenario. I think that I'm going to use Arimidex to intentionally crash my estrogen into the toilet. Now remember, Arimidex is an aromatase inhibitor. Arimidex does not lower the amount of estrogen in my system by acting directly on estrogen. It is only acting on the aromatase enzyme and preventing any aromatizable compound from turning into estrogen. So in this experiment, I am technically free to take as much Arimidex as I want, because the second that I crash my estrogen below physiological range, I'm going to replace it with injections of estradiol valerate. I cannot fucking tell you how nervous I mean, I may record the day that I do this. I am honestly very scared. I shouldn't be. From a purely chemical, scientific, chemistry stance, there's really nothing to fear. I'm going to have no estrogen in my system, and then I'm going to inject a very small, a tiny amount, which I have calculated, which should give me about 20 to 25 picograms per milliliter, or whatever the range is, of estradiol right back into my system. And because it's a valerate ester, it's very fast acting, I'll have to inject it twice a week. I can't remember what dose I'm planning on taking. I've got it in a chart in there. I'll make another video about it when I start. So I don't really have to worry about Arimidex, because the Arimidex is not going to interfere with the estrogen injections. The only risk is that once I get stable on the estrogen injections, if I pull the Arimidex out, then whatever amount of Nandrolone does in fact aromatize will cause my E2 to bump up a tick. So I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do that yet. I think that I'm going to continue dosing Arimidex while the testosterone leaves my system, and until it is clear, possibly backed up with blood work, that I have in fact crashed my estrogen in the toilet. At that point, what I think I'm going to do is re-administer the minimal physiological amount of estrogen to try to be as safe as possible. So what I'm going to do is target a dose of estradiol valerate that will put me on the very low end of normal. So that we have, because we do have some wiggle room, and when I'm dosing it myself, the accuracy should be pretty exact. So if I target out the gate, the lowest end of normal, and then remove the Arimidex from the equation, and we get some aromatase expression from Nandrolone, then hopefully that will keep us still in the range. If Kowalser is right, I should be able to run a relatively large amount of Nandrolone and still be safe. His estimates are, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, it was discussed on Discord. His estimates are that in order to get to a physiological amount of estrogen without estrogen injections, like if I just wanted to use Nandrolone to try to get back into the physiological range, that I would likely require 600 plus milligrams of Nandrolone per week, plus the HCG, in order for me to have enough aromatizable compound to get back into the range. I'm not saying that I will not go that route. I may end up going that route. If I choose at some point to start jacking up the Nandrolone, and I begin to increase aromatase, I begin to increase estrogen through aromatase, then all I have to do is dial back the estrogen injection until we find these two metrics that work perfectly. So basically what I'm attempting to do is to kind of flip the script. For the past 5 years, I've been injecting X amount of aromatizable compounds and then offsetting that with X amount of an aromatase inhibitor. This is not an exact science, and it is not a fast process. If my estrogen goes too high, like it just did, I have been taking I have been trying to treat it for a week, and it is still possibly not in range. I don't like things that take that long. Luckily, it has not been affecting my D game. Luckily, my D game has stayed solid this week. I'm concerned that it's going to be affected when I go low. But what I want is something that is much more rapid to change. So if I have a situation where I'm injecting estradiol, because it is so fast acting and is going to leave the system in a relatively short period of time, I should be able to make micro adjustments to my protocol and get rapid results. If I was to crash my estrogen with Arimidex and then have to wait for aromatase to bring it back up, historically, when that has happened, it has led to a very bad couple of weeks for my wife and I. When I crash my estrogen, I disconnect from her completely. I mean, it is a total, complete disconnection from her emotionally at all. It can put me in such a state that I just absolutely don't care if she leaves. It's very different than the trend-induced egomaniacal, like, F you, I can replace you tomorrow because I'm the trend god. When the estrogen is gone, it is just a total lack of caring. And it affects every facet of my life. It's very negative for our relationship, and that's why I've always erred on the side of keeping my estrogen on the upper end of normal, so that in case there's a little give and take, I don't go low. My hope is that when I go low, I can inject the estrogen immediately, and it's going to immediately be active in my system. Within the first 24 hours or less, I should be right back to the physiological range. So unless there's some delay in having a physiological amount of estrogen, there could be some lag in that estrogen being in serum concentration, then having to bind to the receptor and then do its work. There could be amount of lag there. I don't suspect that it's going to be anywhere near as bad as when you're trying to wait for your aromatase to recover from being suppressed by an inhibitor, and then you need testosterone to bind to aromatase and turn into estrogen, and then estrogen to bind to the receptor, and then impart its DNA function and drive the receptor, and then get back into some kind of physiological state. That is decidedly a slow process. What I am hoping is that I can have a much more instantaneous response by dosing the estradiol. So if I choose to ever use aromatizable compounds, then I would be offsetting that by changing the estradiol dosage. I do not personally suspect that that's the route that I'm going to go. I am really only running Deca because of the joint support. That is the only reason. As long as my joints continue to feel good at 200 to 300 milligrams of Deca, it is my intention to keep the Deca there, to dial in the estrogen one more time. So if we have X amount of aromatase going on with a finite dose of nandrolone decanoate, and then I dial my estrogen into the sweet spot with injectable estradiol valerate, then we will finally have an estrogen level that is rock solid stable. It should not move in any way, shape, or form. And then if I decide to go back on blast, or I want to modify my cycle, or I need more anabolism, then I am free to use any amount of DHT derivatives, Trenbolone. I could use Masteron, Trenbolone, Primo, because again, even if it has an AI effect, doesn't matter. So all of any of the DHT derivatives, Anavar, Anadrol, there's just a ton of, basically I have to stay away from anything that aromatizes and boldenone. Although maybe even, I'm not using boldenone, so it doesn't matter. So basically what I will be able to do is function on the drugs that I care the most about, which is Trenbolone, Masteron, and really honestly that's it. I think that it is very likely that my Masteron dose is getting ready to start going through the roof, and because I think that I have found a Trenbolone dose that is the max that I can handle. But that is going to be for another video likely coming up today. So right now, starting today, I am missing I am skipping my testosterone dose. And so over the course of the next 3 to 4 days, my testosterone should start crashing in my serum concentration. Along with it should go the estrogen, and eventually I should crash both into the toilet. And when that happens, I will make the video either of me doing or immediately post after injecting myself with estrogen, with estradiol valerate, and let you guys know exactly what that feels like. I am very excited to be running this because it is something incredibly atypical, and because from a purely intellectual chemical standpoint, I think it could actually be game changing. I think that this could be the future of anabolic steroid use. Being able to fully control your estrogen level in an exogenous manner to free you up to run compounds like, to basically swap Masteron for testosterone in all of its amazing effects. It really opens the door to do a lot of cool experiments without ever having to worry about estrogen again, and keep it perfectly dialed right into the sweet spot. It also would be phenomenal for guys in competition prep who tend to pull out the test and jack up their Arimidex and crash their estrogen anyway. This would give you even more, if this works and is sustainable, it would give you even more control over dialing in your estrogen levels to the exact sweet spot that you want, so that you can get whatever look it is that you're trying to achieve on stage. It's very possible that what can be determined is that, crashed estrogen is not ideal. Maybe there's some tiny amount of estrogen that will give you enough, water retention, intracellular water retention, to give you an even better look on stage. I don't know. I'm sure this is something, hopefully, that's been experimented with by coaches who are presumably far smarter than me. But there you have it. So that's what's happening. It's finally happening. I've been talking about this for a long time. I'm honestly scared shitless. I have not been off test for 5 years. It's coming out of my system today. And I will definitely be reporting back with exactly what, if anything, goes awry as it comes down. How long does it take to crash my estrogen? And then, of course, what are the effects of actually banging estrogen just straight into my cheeks? I just can't. It's going to be wild. But that's what I do. That's what this channel's all about, trying to bring you crazy, different things than what you're finding everywhere else. I know that there's been some level of experimentation with this, but I don't think to the degree that I'm about to attempt it. Way back in the day, 2002 maybe, I can't even remember. I read a muscular development magazine that talked about the Trenbolone only cycle, and how potent a Trenbolone only cycle could be. And that was one of the earliest things that I ever read about Tren. When I read that article, I was like, man, I want this drug. And I am knocking on the door of actually being able to test what a Trenbolone / 19-nor only cycle really looks like. If I should choose to go that low, if I should choose to pull out the Masteron and all the other things that are in the mix. So there you have it. Stay tuned. This is almost certainly going to be a complete and total dumpster fire. I can't believe that I'm the only person that's thought about this. Surely there's a good reason that coaches are not doing this. Surely this is going to be a total disaster that I'm going to regret and probably spend the next month trying to un-F because I've grown, double D's on injectable estradiol. We'll just see. As always, thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.